Hello, everyone. This is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. We're back here for another one of our learnings on the sacred teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the mystical master and the progenitor of Hasidut or Hasidus. This is a wonderful teaching we are going to encounter today. I know last week we encountered really a wonderful teaching on the idea that although each and every one of us seeks meaning and in a spiritual path in each in our own way tries to seek God, our goal is very difficult to find, because what we know about God is that God is beyond all human capacity and human understanding. So if we were to know God, in some ways we would be God. And so you might be left dissatisfied to know that right from the beginning, it is very hard to attain one's goal of really knowing the inner essence of God. Well, what the Baal Shem Tov advises us is that that should not stop us in our spiritual path, that there's so much value from just swimming in the wisdom of Torah, in spiritual wisdom, and to dwell in God's kingdom. Although we do not directly get to know God's essence, we get to live in God's presence, to feel God's presence, and to live in God's domain, which is the essence of dveikut, of clinging to God, and the essence of the spiritual life of a Jew. I just want to remind my listeners today that I have put my recordings and my teachings on Apple iTunes podcast. You can search my name in iTunes, and you can find my podcast. Each of these Facebook Lives or wherever I record teachings will appear on Apple iTunes. Again, all to inspire your day and really just bring meaning right where you're at right now. Please feel free to review and rate that podcast so it can get to as many listeners as possible to bring peace and to bring love of God to the Jewish world and the world beyond. We can all do this together, and thank you so much for your support and your help. I really appreciate it. We're going to learn a fantastic teaching today, as I said earlier, and this is a teaching, to be honest, that I've struggled with a lot in my life. I think I've spent a lot of my life not following this teaching, and it's really always been bad for me. And when I can cling to this teaching and make it part of who I am, then I really feel a much greater connection to God and a much more balanced life in which I live. So let's start and go right into it. It's taught in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Kol echad tzarich lihitnaheg al pi madregato, ma she'ein ken hatofez madrega shel chaveiro. Every person needs to behave and needs to walk the walk, I would say, according to his or her level. I'm going to say that again. Each and every person needs to behave and needs to walk the walk according to his or her level. Masha ein ken, what is not the case, hatofes madrega shel chaveiro, the one who is seeking to attain and grab at the level of his fellow. So what the Baal Shem Tov is telling us here is that the goal of spiritual life is not to seek the spiritual goals of another and to just be like somebody else and to model somebody else only, but rather to develop the full spiritual potential that is within your unique human soul. And I always give this analogy that each and every one of our souls represents one particular view of God. I believe, and Jewish mysticism believes, that each Jewish person's soul, within each Jewish, what a soul is a piece of godliness that is able to dwell within the world. And within the human body, within our physical form, acts as like a car or a vehicle for the soul. Godliness within itself, since it's beyond time and beyond space, cannot dwell in this world without a physical body to partner with. So by dwelling with the human body, the soul can be in this world. This is a very, very important concept to understand. Now, in addition to this, we should know that our soul doesn't include all of godliness. It doesn't include all of God, right? Because if it included all of God, we would be like a light bulb that burned out from a voltage that was too high, right? And that's a very important understanding. I like to compare God to a power station or a power plant, right? If all the power plant went into one light bulb, think of what would happen to that light bulb. It would blow up, right? And God doesn't want that. God wants each and every human person to live and be in this world. Very, very important. So God limited God's godliness to each person as a little piece. And what's beautiful is that every human soul has a different piece of godliness in it. And within interacting and being in relationship with different souls of different people, we interact with God in a bigger and deeper way. We get to know God on a deeper and deeper level, right? So the more people we are in relationship with in a deep way, on a soul way, the more we get to relate to God. Now, that only is on the basis that that person acts according to their level. They don't act like someone else. They don't try to be according to someone else. What I like to say is that if I imagine trying to go to God's domain, or God is like compared to a castle on a hill, and each of us are trying to visit this king in a castle, and we're each coming from different directions, right? So I might be coming from the north, and my friend might be coming from the northwest or the west, or all different kinds of degrees. And because of that, we really see God and we see God's domain from a different perspective. And in order to gain a full understanding of God, or a more full understanding of God, as we learned from the previous passage, the Baal Shem Tov tells us it's impossible to know God from all perspectives. It's impossible. But what we can know God is from our perspective, certainly, and also from the perspective of other people we interact with and engage with on a soul level in a deep way. And that is what makes it so important to have friends, to interact in community. Jewish spiritual life is lived out in community in that regard. But of course, that's posited only on the basis of living according to one's own soul. Because if I live according to someone else's spiritual path, or I just try to be like someone else because inside I maybe don't like myself, I'm disgusted with myself inside, then we shut down that particular unique perspective on God that God brought into this world. The reason that we have human souls and we exist in this world, one of the major reasons is because God wanted to be known, right? God knows oneself through those souls. Very important understanding, very deep understanding that comes out of this teaching. I want to talk about this on a very, we're going very deep immediately, but I want to really talk about this in a practical way. It's so easy, especially in the Jewish world, to see people you want to be and just want to be like them and copy every single thing they do. This happens all the time, especially in the world of the yeshiva, someone who's very good at Talmud. You want to be just like them, just as smart as them, just as ingenious as them, or maybe it's in sports. You want to play as good, be just like them. And this serves sort of a purpose because it helps us to work harder, right, which is really important. But what the Baal Shem Tov is pointing out, that it really serves as a dangerous point because it pushes us sometimes to deny who we are, deny our own soul, and therefore diminish that perspective of God in the world. So not only are you doing a disservice for yourself, you're doing a disservice for the rest of the world that no longer gets to experience God through the perspective that lies within your own soul. The Baal Shem Tov continues here. Zeh v'zeh lo nikaima biyado. The Baal Shem Tov instructs us in his holy way that if we just only try to seek the level or the perspective or the way of somebody else, the soul root of somebody else, want to live according to someone else's level and according to someone else's relationship with God, according to someone else's soul, not only will we not become like that person, we will not improve our own spiritual way of living. We won't bring any more meaning into our lives. In the end, we'll actually diminish the meaning from our lives. The Baal Shem Tov continues and bases this on a Talmudic passage. V'zehu she'amru harbe asu kerashbi v'lo alta b'yadam. This passage, which translates to, and many have done according to Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, and have not accomplished that in which Rashbi accomplished. Rashbi is the acronym for Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, who is a great spiritual master within the Talmudic in the early period, about 2,000 years ago. A great, great spiritual master. And if we look deeper into that text, we can understand a little bit more of what the Baal Shem Tov is pushing us to understand here. This comes from a piece of Talmud in the tractate of the Talmud called Brachot, which goes through and talks about the different blessings and prayers in Jewish law and Jewish lore. This, and also the Talmud tends to not just include laws, but also lore and stories of the rabbis that we are to learn from and instructed by. One of these discussions that takes place in the passage of Brachot is how to live a Torah lifestyle, how to live according to the Talmud, according to different rabbis, in a way in which you're able to study Torah and learn Torah and live in the world at the same time. There's a conflict of opinions. There's a discussion. There's an argument which happens so much times in the Talmud between Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai and Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael says that one should learn Torah, but also at the same time, one should work in a job, right? One should make money. One shouldn't go to a monastery somewhere, but rather one should live in the world and do what normal people do and work hard. And even though that'll enable, you will not be able to study as much Torah, right? You'll not be able to spend as much time studying sacred wisdom. Rabbi Yishmael advises us that we need to do our own work and we need to live like mortal people in this world. The next opinion comes from Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai states that actually when we are not studying Torah, there is almost a sin. There's something wrong going on, that we are really meant to study Torah, and every moment in which we're not studying Torah, we're denying true life, right? We're setting aside eternal life for profane life, for life of this world. And this was a very bad thing. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai was known for his dedication to Torah study, and he didn't work a normal job. He just studied all day long, and he even one time, because of Roman persecution, had to stay in a cave for 12 years. And it was told that with his son, he buried themselves up to the neck with earth and studied Torah for 12 years in a cave. This is an amazing, amazing story. So what we can tell from the story, and what the Beish is bringing the story to show us, is that Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai lived a unique Torah lifestyle in which really he was completely dedicated, almost like a monk, to Torah. That's what he did all day long. He almost didn't live in the regular world. He was somehow elevated, and all he did was study Torah all day long. And what this passage tells us immediately afterwards, and it's really left as a disagreement, right? That there are different paths, and we can discuss at another time which path is the better path. But what the Baal Shem Tov is trying to highlight at this point is that many have done like the Rashbi, many have done like Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, but have not accomplished what he has accomplished, right? And this is how the Gemara ends the sugya, right? Meaning the discussion. Many have tried to do and follow the example of Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, meaning dedicate themselves completely to Torah, to fast all the time, to live as a spiritual ascetic outside of the world, and have not accomplished this. Meaning, as the Baal Shem Tov understands this, Rotze Lomar, Shalo Hayu Bebechina Zo Raksh Asuk Rashbi, meaning they did not have the inside of themselves, in their soul, they were not Rashbi. They were not Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai. That was not their path. They did not have that as their bechina, as their aspect inside of themselves. Rather, they just did externally what Rashbi did and expected the same spiritual results that Rashbi accomplished. Now, Rashbi was a unique individual. And maybe the Gemara is hinting at this, that the path of Rashbi is not for most people, right? And actually, most people should do what Rabbi Yishmael. Maybe the Gemara is even saying, really, Rabbi Yishmael's path is a good path, right? To learn Torah and also live in the world, right? That's certainly my path, right? I like doing both, right? It's important to do both. But what the Gemara is showing but many people have tried to be like Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, to try to be according to Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai, but have failed. And the main reason they failed is because inside of themselves, they are not Rabbi Shimon bar Yohai. He's a unique individual, and they just did according to his external actions. And so therefore, they weren't able to live a meaningful life, a life connected to God, unlike Rashbi, who certainly did. He was a mystic of the highest order. And this he uses as a proof to show us that the Gemara also agrees, that the Talmud also agrees with him, that we should live according to our way. We shouldn't just role model our spiritual heroes and giants and just follow their actions. Rather, we need to go according to our path. And this happens to me a lot, I have to say. There's so many great spiritual role models and examples within the Jewish faith, in particular, great saints and great role models, great tzaddikim. And I just, inside, for me, I want to be like them. I wish I was more like them. And so I try to do their practices, which are more extreme, which are more beyond me. And I always end up being left in the dust, right? I always end up being left behind because that's not my level. That's not my path. That's not where I should be. That's not what I should be doing. And more than that, as I said before in the beginning of this talk, that we are denying God's reality in this world. How so? Because we have within our soul, when we act according to our level and we act according to our soul, we reveal the way God reveals God's self within our soul. Remember, God reveals God's self within each human soul in a unique way. And when we deny that unique way in which we live, then we deny that particular perspective and part of God. So it's very important that we act according to ourselves in order to live a meaningful life for ourselves, which is this is all. It's all about live a meaningful life, a life connected to godliness, connected to others, a joyful life, but also in the service of humankind, that your soul, just the way you are, right, has a unique way of representing God in this world, of bringing meaning into this world. And when we deny our own selves, that is one of the worst things we could do. That's a denial of godliness in a very important way. And we have to understand that. We really, really have to internalize that concept. Too often we fall for this. I'll end with a little story. Many have heard this story, but it's often, if I did not repeat it here for those who have not heard it, and even for those who heard it, this story is certainly connected. So it's stated from a famous tzaddik, a famous Hasidic Rebbe, who came in the generation after the Baal Shem Tov, actually 2 generations after the Baal Shem Tov. His name was Rabbi Mishulam Zusia Anipoli, Zusia, as we say. And one time, his followers asked him and said, supposedly he was passing away, and he was on his deathbed, and he looked worried. Zusia looked worried, and his followers asked him, were gathered around him to see him in his last moments. They said, "Why are you worried? Why are you so worried? You've been doing so many righteous deeds. You've lived a righteous life. What are you worried about?" And they said to him, Rabbi Zusia said to him back, "When I get to the heavenly court on high, it won't be that they will ask me, why weren't you acting like Moshe Rabbeinu? Why weren't you acting like even the Baal Shem Tov or anybody else? But rather they'll ask this in question. They'll ask, why did you not act according to Zusia? Why did you not act according to who you are?" Right? That's what God asks of us in the end, in our life and the life hereafter, is Are you acting like who you are? Who I created you? Are you acting according to the potential of your divine soul that I've given you? Because that's the whole point, right? Each person is unique, and each person, when they act according to their way and according to the soul that God gave them, gives nachas ruach, gives pleasure and joy to God, just as a father to a son, or a mother to a son or a daughter. We are giving joy to God by being who we are, and too many times we diminish ourselves. And that's not to say that we shouldn't work on ourselves and make us the best version of who we are. We each have shortcomings that we need to work on. But we should not violate the very nature of our essence and the very nature of our souls in order to do that. It's been a pleasure learning with you. I hope you enjoyed this teaching. I hope it brings meaning, some meaning to your day. Please tell it to others. Please comment and email me. Tell me how this, what you think about this teaching, how it works for you, how it might have played out in your life. And please remember to subscribe on iTunes to the podcast that just came out. Please leave a review or a rating of any kind. Share it with your friends. So we can, again, bring a message of Torah, bring a message of love, of peace, of clinging to God, of living a joyful life in the humble presence of God to as many people as possible. May you have a meaningful life today. May there be light in your life, and may you be joyous.